Hello guys, once again this is Roger. You can call me Tarzan. Today we're going to analyze what we have played against the national chess master Jerry. Jerry had the white pieces and Facebook users had the black pieces. Okay, let's play the game. Jerry first move d4, which is the queen's pawn opening, and Facebook users move knight f6. Then white replied by c4. Then we replied by g6. g6 allows the bishop to fianchetto on d7 square. Other suggestions by my teammates is to play e6, and this is one of the flexible move by black. This can lead to means to Indian defense like knight c3, then bishop b4. Other suggestions by the Facebook user is d5, but the most popular move chosen by the Facebook user is g6. Then white replied by knight c3, then bishop to g7. This clears the space from castling, and this bishop g7 allows to play white by e4, and so Jerry does play e4. The next plan could be e5, and so it is common to play here d6, guarding the square e5. Now, is it possible to play castling first before d6? Yes, because Bobby Fischer played this game against René Latcheller. René played e5, then Bobby Fischer played knight to e8, and Bobby Fischer won the game against René Latcheller in 24 moves. This match happened around 1960. Back into the game. After d6, Jerry replied bishop to e2, which is the Averbach variation. Another Averbach variation is to play bishop g5. White can tip his hand also by playing f3, which is the Spanish variation, or f4, which is the 4 pawns attack. After bishop e2, then black castle. Then Jerry replied knight f3. Knight f3 is the classical variation of the king's Indian defense. In this 6th move for black, a lot of suggestions by my teammate is to play c5. Other wants to play knight c6 or knight bd7, and other wants to play e5, and other do not want to play e5. But the most common way to play the king's Indian defense is to play e5 or to play c5. One of our teammates comments that if you play e5, this allows to play white by d5, and this blocks the diagonal bishop on g7. By playing e5, then d5, this is the Petrosian system. Another reason for playing e5 is to break the center of the white's mighty pawn. Another reason, as explained by Michael Jorgensen, by playing e5 is to block the pawn on e4 by coming to e5. Other comments that I have read don't want to play e5, explaining that if you play e5, white could win one pawn because the pawn on e5 is attacked twice by knight on f3 and pawn on d4. Okay, let's do this. If white takes the pawn on e5, this is what we call the King's Indian exchange variation. Then d takes e5. Then what is the next best reply for white? Queen takes d8 or knight takes e5? The best reply is queen takes d8, then rook takes d8, and bishop g5, then rook d8. Let's try the other variation. D takes e5, d takes e5, and if knight takes e5, then queen takes d1 check, then bishop takes d1, knight takes e4, knight takes e4, then bishop takes e5. And this is good for black. White is uncastled. Second, the bishop on d1 is on the back rank, while black is already castled, and the rook had a lot of space to make like d8 and to e8, and black is better. Another thing is black can develop to bishop to f5 and knight c6, going to the center. Back into the game. So the most popular move chosen by a Facebook user is e5. Then white replied by castles. Castling is the orthodox variation of King's Indian. Now, in this 7th move reply by black, Pranil suggested knight bd7. Knight bd7 is the follow-up move of the orthodox King's Indian defense. Pranil explained that the purpose of knight b to d7 is that it adds the defender to e5 square that hit twice and strengthen the knights on f6. Pranil also suggested p6 as well as Ignacio Ramirez. The purpose of p6, as explained by Pranil, is to play bishop to b7 or bishop to e6. But Mr. Paogam explained that playing double fianchetto is not a good idea. Mr. Paogam explained also that playing knight bd7 would not be sensible because after that, it would nowhere else to go. Instead, he suggested knight c6 that develops a knight, and it is the best move. But is there anything wrong playing with the knight bd7 as suggested by one of our teammates, Pranil? Playing knight bd7 is the King's Indian defense orthodox variation. After knight bd7, followed by rook e1 and c6, bishop f1, then a5. Another suggestion that I have read in those comments by Oli, one of our teammates, is that playing e takes d4, then knight takes d4, then c5. Then after a couple of minutes, Jerry commented. He says, Can anyone respond to all his comment? Is this something good or not so good? Why and why not? And Ron Marcelis responded at Chessnetwork, I don't like e takes d4, knight takes d4, c5, because the follow-up move is knight d, b5, and the d6 pawn will fall, and a lot of pressure in the center. And Hadi agreed with Ron. Hadi also explained that he do see that the knight on f6 will come to e8 to protect the pawn on d6, and that exchanges will favor white, Hadi says. Okay, let's try to find out. Knight d, b5 forks the d6 square, then knight to e8, defending the pawn on d6, then bishop to f4, then the pawn on d6 collapse, and there is no other way to defend the pawn on d6. This c5 was not a good idea. It weakens the pawn on d6. Instead, should have been played rook e8. Let's try to find out. E takes d4, knight takes d4, not c5, but the right one is rook e8. This forks the pawn on e4. Then white will play f3, and that is much better. This was also explained by Dang Swang Tung and Don Blackensheep back into the game. And so Oli agreed that e takes d4, knight takes d4, and c5 doesn't work, but he does not want the look of d5. And after 48 hours, the most popular move chosen by the Facebook users, knight c6. And this knight c6 is the King's Indian Arunin Taimanov variation. And that's it, guys. Hope you enjoy my chess video part 1. See you on the next clip. And this is Tarzan.